After Kath set the class the paired task, she looked in her box for some work that she appeared to need for herself. Several pupils had not followed instructions to start the task. Kath tried to refocus Mike on the task by saying his name and pausing. Mike explained that his pen was not working, although he appeared to be in deep conversation with his friends. Kath expected Mike to sort out this problem himself and to get on with the task.
Sorry, miss, my pen's not working.
Well, sort yourself out, please. You're disturbing everyone else.
Kath appeared to have planned to do some individual teaching with Tom, while the class worked independently in their pairs. It was only at the point that she called him that she realised that he too was turning round talking to his friends. Kath had to disturb other pupils to get his attention.
Someone give Tom a prod for me.
Tom interpreted Kath's request to go over his homework as a matter of choice, although it was not intended to be a choice. Kath's next comment
Come on up, it won't be that bad.
did encourage Tom to go and work with her at her desk.
Michael, have you still not managed to sort yourself out?
While Kath was talking to Tom, she noticed that Mike still had not started the task, and that his attempt to sort himself out had resulted in one of the girls lending him a pen. Unfortunately, it was a Manchester United pen, not Mike's favourite team, and Mike's immediate response was to throw it across the room. The pen flew to the back of the classroom, and Kath sensed that things were getting out of hand. Because she wanted to work with Tom, Kath asked Mrs. Latimer to intervene.
Mrs. Latimer, I wonder if you could help.
Mrs. Latimer looked slightly perturbed, but got up and moved across to Mike. By this time, the pen was being passed between pupils, and the noise level was rising. Kath's response to this was to remain seated at her desk and to raise her voice slightly to redirect the class.
Come along, APT. I'm sure you can manage to do your work without throwing your pens around.
The instruction to pupils to get on with the task was lost somewhere in this sentence. Tom was still waiting by her desk, but before Kath could focus on teaching Tom, Sarah raised her hand to speak. Kath discovered that Sarah needed help, and invited both Sarah and her partner to come out to the front, in a way that felt supportive.
Well, come on up and we'll sort you out.
This indicated to the rest of the class that they should come up to see her as and when necessary. While she was explaining to Tom, Elizabeth got up and set off towards the front of the classroom. En route, she managed to disturb Matthew by hitting him with her exercise book and stopped for a chat with Victoria and Kirsty. Without Mrs. Latimer, Billy became distracted. The rising noise level and the class movement started to disturb him. Mrs. Latimer was aware of this and became concerned, but she felt that she had to stay with Mike to help him settle down to work, as Kath had requested. Elizabeth continued on her way out to the front, disturbing Alice as she did so. There was now a high level of distraction in the class, and some of the pupils were not focused on the task. By this time, 5 pupils were waiting to see Kath, and the length of the queue was distracting other pupils, who previously had been working well. It was also blocking Kath's view of the rest of the class.
We've spent a lot of time making sure that teaching assistants feel part of the teaching team, and that their knowledge and experience is recognised and shared. Time is set aside, whenever possible, for planning, so that the most effective use can be made of the teacher-teaching assistant partnership in the classroom. Mrs. Latimer is quite clear about the role she plays in the classroom. She is working on a staged programme to include Billy in mainstream lessons. This has been very carefully planned and discussed with Billy, his family and the educational psychologist. For the programme to be successful, Billy's inclusion needs to be carefully structured.
Mrs. Latimer, I wonder if you could help. Come along, APT. I'm sure you can manage to do...
Situations like this mean that Mrs. Latimer cannot function professionally because she's diverted away from her planned work to meet the immediate needs of the teacher, in this case, reacting to a problem situation. Mrs. Latimer is well aware of the kind of classroom atmosphere that Billy needs to succeed. So in this lesson, she is torn between the plan to stay close to Billy at this crucial stage in his programme, or assisting Kath by calming the class down so that the learning environment is more conducive to Billy's welfare and learning. She decided on this occasion to assist Kath, as she felt that this would be most helpful to Billy. While she was assisting Mike, Mrs. Latimer could see that Billy was finding the situation difficult. Although this is clearly the right maths class for Billy from an academic point of view, we need to review whether we have made the right decision in relation to his social and emotional needs. I think that Kath needs a reminder about Billy's programme and Mrs. Latimer's role in it. In the longer term, Kath needs to consider how she uses this part of the lesson to provide focused teaching for individuals and small groups. This could provide a useful focus for some coaching for Kath.
Oh, Tom?
This was the time in the lesson when Kath could really have focused on teaching individuals or pairs, but she didn't seem to have the confidence to do this from anywhere other than behind her desk.
Oh, come on up.
This might be the result of previous unsuccessful experiences she has had trying to teach small groups in a busy classroom. Because pupils had to seek Kath out when they needed her, she was letting them set the agenda for how she spent her teaching time. By staying behind her desk, Kath also missed opportunities to monitor pupils' learning and carry out formative assessment. Because Kath seemed unaware of what the main body of the class was doing, a situation arose where many pupils were off task and there was a lot of movement about the class. Conversation was not related to the task, and time wasting escalated into equipment being thrown around, notes being passed and noise levels rising. I was surprised to see that some pupils managed to concentrate despite the classroom atmosphere. Eventually, rather than taking control of the situation and re-establishing an atmosphere conducive to learning, Kath directed the teaching assistant to manage pupils' behaviour.
Mrs. Latimer, I wonder if you could help.
All in all, in this part of the lesson, there was minimal teaching and learning.
Throwing your pens around. Yes,
It would help Kath if she planned the teaching that she wants to do in this part of the lesson more carefully. She should have a specific teaching focus with particular members of the class. But Kath will not be able to carry out these plans unless pupils learn the behaviour skills they need for independent learning and have all the information and support they need to work with minimal supervision. Kath will need to use specific classroom management skills, such as scanning the class and providing brief non-verbal feedback to keep pupils' attention on the task. Once Kath understands the way that her current practice is not moving pupils' learning forward, she will, I am sure, be willing to develop strategies to engage pupils in tasks for longer periods with minimal teacher input. It can be quite challenging to do this, and Kath will benefit from the support of a teacher coach or observation and feedback sessions with colleagues in the maths department.